We haven't done one of these in a long time. This is a data deep dive. I've got like 12 charts for you. Andrew Yang would be all over this. And it's going to explain why the Republican Party beat the Democrats in 2024 and hopefully give some insights as to what can be done to turn that around. I should give credit where it's due. This is data that was produced by the Blue Rose Research Group, which is a Democratic, heavily Democratic leaning analytics group that I think worked for the Harris campaign. I can't say that they probably took the Blue Rose advice all the time, but the guy, David Shor, is the head honcho over there. And he shared some of his data on one of my favorite podcasts, which is the Ezra Klein Show, if you haven't watched that. Oh, hey, Jeremy. Hello, nerds. We got members in the chat. We haven't done a live stream in a while. I've been doing some shorts. I don't know if you guys have noticed any of this freaking guy shorts, but let me know in the chat if you've seen any of those and if you enjoy it. They're kind of quick. I do like one a day. But this is the kind of stuff that I think is very much in the center of the DNA of the Nerds for Humanity channel. And it's all about the data. And this would not be possible without our channel members. So about halfway through the stream, I am going to give shout outs to our channel members. So if you've been thinking of joining, like Jeremy is a member, he's got that nice little icon there that shows he is a member. Now is your chance because I'm going to give shout outs, and I have a Swiss cowbell here that will be rung when I say your name if you join during this live stream. And if you join as a really big time member, I might whip out the gong. That sounded more interesting than it was meant to be. It literally is a little gong thing. All right, let's get into the data. You didn't come here for just talking, right? You want some of that data? I'm going to get you that data. All right, let's see. I believe this one is the first one. Yep, that's it. And I have not personally gone deep into these slides. So we're going to be like unboxing it together. So let's have fun and get into the numbers. Now, you're not going to see this kind of conversation on MSNBC or frankly on Fox News, but you're going to see it on Nerds for Humanity because our channel members keep this party going. All right, so let me zoom in here. Okay, what do we see here? Trends from 2016 to, see if I can make that a little bigger. 2020 largely continued to play out from 2020 to 2024, with Hispanic and Asian voters, especially moderates, continuing to swing away from the Democrats. So this is one of those situations where I think the Democratic Party may have taken the Asian and Hispanic voters for granted. Were there many Asian American cabinet members under Biden? I'm not sure if there were. Let me ask good old ChatGPT. Were there any AAPI cabinet members in Biden admin? Okay, there was. Let's see. Well, that is true. Kamala Harris is half South Indian or South Asian, sorry. And then Catherine Tai was U.S. Trade Representative. Arati Prabhakar was Director of Office of Science and Technology. But none were Cabinet Secretary. So I'm not saying that that's why Asians moved away from Biden, but I mean, if Biden was like all for DEI, there was not a single East Asian American in the cabinet. There were a couple in the administration, but anyway, that's not what this data is all about. So let's get into it here. You've got on the left-hand side, you have here race. Then you have percent of registered voters. So this is where, maybe the Biden folks would say, well, look, there's only 3% of registered voters are Asian moderates. So why should we go out of our way? I don't know. I mean, there's only 3% of voters are Black liberal and Black conservative. Only 3% are Hispanic liberal. But at any rate, so that's the number. But let's focus on the moderates from Hispanic and Asian, which in total is 9% of registered voters are moderates who are Hispanic and Asian. That's an interesting number. Now, in Clinton 2016, Hillary Clinton got 81% of Hispanic moderates and 78% of Asian moderates. Joe Biden in 2020 got 70% of Hispanic moderates and 76% of Asian moderates. So Joe Biden lost a lot of Hispanic moderates in 2020. But now you go to 2024. Look at this, guys. Harris only got 58% of Hispanic moderates and only 67% of Asian moderates, even though she is half South Asian. That's pretty notable. So what's the takeaway here? You see this swing from 20 to 24, negative 12%, from 16 to 24, negative 23%. I mean, the Democratic Party lost tons of Hispanic moderates, lost those voters more than any other group. After that would be Hispanic conservatives, and then it would have been Asian moderates. Democratic Party doing pretty good with white voters, lost a little bit of Black voters, but not too much. Really took it in the shorts with the Hispanic moderates and the Asian moderates. So that's one chart for you. And we're just getting started. Okay, guys, we're just totally literally just getting started. We got more. Let's look at the next one. All right, what do we have here? Ooh, this is a twofer. Look at this. Maybe I can make that bigger. Do it like this. Okay. So politically disengaged voters have become more Republican. So let's start with the left-hand side. You've got voter preference of registered voters based on Times Siena surveys. Among 2020 voters, Biden actually leads. For people who do vote, Biden led. But for people who did not vote in 2020, Trump was plus 14. So if you really weren't politically engaged in 2020, and then you participated in 2024, you basically have these non-voters moving from Biden to Trump. What does that mean? I mean, that means the people that, unfortunately, the people that are watching Nerds for Humanity, you all probably vote. So you probably stuck with whatever direction you've been in. You may have friends who didn't even bother voting in 2020, but then voted in 2024. And those people who are like, I don't really care, they're all crap, and then didn't participate, and then in 2024 participated by quite a large margin, those people went for Donald Julius Trump. And I guess what that means is I would think the why is that a lot of people who voted for Trump were very disaffected with politics in general and are probably happy that Trump is just this wrecking ball and just, shaking stuff up. So that's the left-hand side. So if you're the Democratic Party, you got to find a way to speak to these people who have been unplugged or tuned out and are so pissed that when they came back, they went for the orange man, who, as we know, is bad. Okay, on the right-hand side, the swing in Democratic vote share from 2020 to 2024 by midterm turnout. So on the horizontal axis, you have change in Democratic vote share between 2024 and 2020. And then on the bottom, you have precinct level turnout. And the higher the turnout, the bigger the change in vote share. So I think that suggests that if people really were highly, highly engaged and voted in midterms, they tended to swing in the Democratic direction. But if they didn't participate in the election in 2020 and probably sat out of the midterms, those types tended to be more likely to go for El Trumpo. All right, let's look at another slide. Ooh, look at this. Trump likely won naturalized citizen voters who were born outside the U.S. So this is a classic case of sometimes the most recent immigrants are the ones who are the least likely to support more immigration. Precinct level election results point to Trump making considerable gains in Black, Hispanic, and Asian immigrant neighborhoods. Immigrant voters swung from Biden plus 27 to Trump plus 1. Holy crap, what a swing. Naturalized citizens make up 10% of the electorate. This, by the way, debunks the MAGA conspiracy theory that Democrats were encouraging more people to come to America so they would vote for Democrats. Well, MAGA folks, you guys are winning the naturalized immigrants. They're voting for El Trumpo. Let's look at what this little visualization on the right. Okay. Irish, Italian, or Polish ancestry, like Nassau, Long Island. Then you have blue is white college graduates, both and other. And on the bottom, you have how much is foreign born, like Miami-Dade, a lot of foreign born. Atlanta suburbs, not so much. But what you also see is that the percentage change in Republican vote share is on the vertical axis. And as you get more foreign born, you start seeing a movement up towards the Republicans. And when you have more native born, Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that recent naturalized citizens are such big fans of Donald Trump? And I think the narrative would be they would say, well, we came here legally. We didn't come here through asylum applications. And, we're very much in favor of that. I know my mother is in that camp where she and my father got H-1 visas in the late 1960s. And then they became naturalized citizens, and they feel like that's the way to do it. If you have engineering degrees and stuff like that, you should be able to get in. So let's look at some more data. Interesting, though. Who would have thought that Trump beat the Democrats with immigrants? Crazy. Ay. And where Trump made so much, I think this one, I'm still blown away by this one, where Harris only got 58% of Hispanic moderates when Clinton got 81% of them just 8 years earlier. Okay, let's go back to a new slide here. Young voters have become more Republican. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. So all of these narratives around these youth, they don't know how to work hard. They're just crazy socialists. Like, young people are voting more and more Republican. Okay, let's look at the chart. Democratic support by age, split by race and gender. So as you go from left to right, you get older. And as you can see, the older you get, the more likely you are to support the Democrats. But if you're 20 and you're a white man, you are very unlikely to support the Democratic Party. If you're 20 and you are a person of color woman, then you're very likely to vote Democratic Party. And then what's this dashed one? That's a person of color man is 50-50 if you're 20. So the Democratic Party, my God, we're racking up all kinds of issues with the Democratic Party. Number one, losing moderates, Hispanics, losing moderate Asians, losing naturalized immigrants, losing most young voters. That's the problem. Yeah, I mean, well, it's losing white men, young white women, coin flip on person of color men. The only young group that the Democrats are doing well is person of color women, age 20. Whew. Oh my God. That's interesting. Look at this. It kind of goes down when you go from 40 to 60. Look at this. White men, as they age, they become more likely to vote for Democrats from 20, maybe 25% to over 40. But then once they turn 40, they start becoming less likely to support Democrats. And then once they turn 60 and retire, they become more likely to support Democrats. And then once they turn 75, they become less likely to support. So it's interesting how, and you see this also with white women, where white women are like 45% Democrat at 20, then they get to a majority in their 30s, but then they start drifting down when they're in their 40s and 50s. But then once they turn 60, a little bit more in favor. So this whole notion of young people are Democrats and then they get wise and they become Republicans is not necessarily true. it looks like most young people are not Democrats. But then when they turn 30, from 20 to 30, everybody becomes more likely to be Democrat than they were when they were 20. And then there's this long kind of drift, especially for white people, from age 40 to 60. And then they are, no pun intended, awakened when they're 60 and then become more likely to be Democrats until they're 75, and then they become less likely. The only group, oh, hey, we got another member in the chat. Hey, Mickey. Oh, what a beautiful doggo. My Daisy is lactose intolerant, so she would not be down with the Ben & Jerry's. Okay. The only group that consistently sticks with the Democratic Party are non-white women. Yeah. And then yeah, so interesting. Let's look at that a little further. Yeah, non-white women and non-white men. Basically, non-whites generally stick with the Democratic Party, although person of color men at age 20, they're kind of, the Republicans and Democrats flip a coin, but then after they get older than 20, they generally stick with the Democrats, whereas the brown lines are for white people. You know, they never really are big fans of the Democrats other than white women around age 30. And I'm guessing that has something to do with reproductive rights, but I'll let you all read into this. Hey, nerds. There are 64 people in the live stream. This is quite a lot for us. We haven't had this many in a while. So you 64 people, if you're enjoying this data, I have more. Good news, I have more. But do me a solid and like and share this stream, because then, you know, me going through all this data will not only benefit you, but the rest of the nerddom out there. Okay. Let's get some more charts. The difference in Democratic support between men and women has doubled for young voters. So we're zooming in on the gap between men and women here. And the gender gap of Democratic support between men and women is quite large for these young 25-year-olds. And then it's a little bit less for the 50-year-olds and forward. So the gap between women and men is fairly stable for voters between ages of 40 and 70. If you restrict it to people younger than 25, we see that gap double in size. And that this might even be happening globally. So if you are in the business of attracting voters and you are losing more young voters than you used to, that is not a good sign for the Democratic Party. And you got to wonder, like, oh, shit. If you want real, I know there's some MAGA people out there who are like, this is great. Let's just watch the Democrats implode. This is not really good for you. You don't want to be in that neighborhood where you can only get Comcast. You know what I mean? No offense to Comcast. I'm sure a lot of people enjoy it. I'm on a Comcast connection now. But I do like the option that, well, you know, I could move to AT&T if I'm not happy with the service. Or I could get Starlink, you know, or I could go to Google Fi or whatever. I like options. I like competition. And if the Democratic Party is imploding, like, that's not good for America. It might be good for Donald Julius Trump in the short term. But in terms of what's good for patriotic people who want America to be strong and have the best government possible, like, you want competition. And we could talk about this later, but there's an interesting question of like, well, why? Why is the Democratic Party losing moderates, losing more young people than they did in the past, doing terrible with white men, and losing presidential elections? So we'll get to that, but let's look at some more data. So that's the gender gap. Trump's favorability was always bad. It was negative 6% in 2020, and it was negative 7% in 2024. So it's not like Donald Trump became some incredible, likable fellow. The problem was that Biden had +6 favorability and Harris had -6. That's a 12-point swing. So for all of you Trumpers out there, don't exactly pound your chest too much. I know you know, he is your Lord and Savior and divine intervention and all this, but the data suggests that people didn't really like him. Most people did not like Trump. They didn't like him in 2020, and they liked him less in 2024 than they did in 2020. The difference was that Biden was somewhat likable in 2020, and I would argue Biden and Harris were a lot less likable in 2024. And now I'm going to just share my opinion. I think a lot of that had to do with the way immigration and the border was being handled. And as much as I do not like Trump, I have to say, when he said, well, you know, under Biden, they said you needed new legislation to secure the border. And then Trump said, turns out you just need a new president. I mean, I was kind of annoyed with him, but he was kind of right that, you know, he was able to enforce the border security and make it very clear that, you know, high levels of asylum loophole applicants was not going to be allowed anymore. That had an effect on illegal crossings, and you know, you gotta hold people accountable like that. That means that Biden probably could have done some of that, maybe not quite as extreme and radical as Trump, but he could have, and he didn't. And I think a lot of people voted on that issue, including immigrants. Immigrants themselves were like, I don't think I like how this is being handled. Okay, so probably one of those examples where Biden was so desperate to be not Trump. That's what Trump does to you. He's so deplorable that he makes his opponents overcorrect and then gets those opponents in trouble. All right. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more charts to go through. So buckle up, Buttercup. But before we do that, let's thank the people who make this channel possible, which is our channel members. And if anybody has joined during this stream, or if you want to, now is the time. You can help pay for the streaming costs, for this microphone, camera, audio podcast hosting. If you guys like, oh, Yoda just hooked. Dude, Yoda Fanny. Oh, is that new? What happened to the little ringer thing? There we go. I love it. That's what is that? Is that like some kind of bulldog and a Jack Russell combo? We love the dogs in the Nerds for Humanity family. Okay, I'm going to keep Yoda's super chat up there. Okay, Soldier One is a member, the highest ongoing supporter of this channel. He's about to be supporting us for almost 5 years. So thank you, Soldier One, member of the Nerd Cabinet. The Nerd Congress. We have Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Zig PC. Kristen's already past 60 months. She's at 62 months. And Bike passed the 4-year mark. And Zig PC is about to hit the 3-year mark of being a member. Golly, you guys rock. Then we have the City Council. City Council members. Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Mr. History, Mona, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason. Whoa, I can't. What the? Hold on. What is going on with this? Mona, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey. Ooh, Mickey's in the chat. Unkiyu, Jackson, Jeremy, Brittany. Wait a minute. Brittany was not a city council member before. She must have upgraded recently. 20 days ago. I love it. Welcome, Brittany. I think Brittany used to be like a registered nerd or some lower level, but now she's moving up in the world. All right. Jeremy Salmons, I think he's in the chat. So you guys rock, City Council. And then we're going to go to our registered nerds. I wonder if I can increase this, make it easier. I'm going to scroll through these guys. Oh, dude, one of our supporters, their channel has been deleted. Hopefully their credit card is still supporting this content. There's some great people here. I recognize a lot of these names. Been seeing them for years. So thank you to all of you. And, oh, wait, 8 months ago, Joseph Tramontano. He's one of our newest nerds. All right. Let's see. Who are our oldest nerds? Let's say we want to go for all of them. Our oldest nerd is Gene, then Kristen, then Brandon, David, and DK. And our youngest nerds are, whoops, time as member. Oldest are Gene, Kristen, Brandon, David, DK. And our youngest are Joseph, Sue, and Earl. All right. Woo! Okay. Now, let's go for more data. Ooh, we got 71. If you can't become a member, next best thing is to like and share. Just saying. Because your favorite nerd here is like spending a lot of time. I'm losing my voice. I'm going to have to run in a 5K tomorrow. And I got to get up at like 4 a.m. because my nerdling son is running a marathon that's starting at 7. And we got to drive over there. Okie dokie. Here it is, the next one. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Yeah, you're going to like this one. Hold on. Present. There it is. The Biden administration was very unpopular while incumbents globally faced similar challenges. This was an inescapable dynamic. Do Americans approve or disapprove of Joe Biden? 57% disapproved of him. And as many of you know, we could have had a freaking primary around here, couldn't we? January of 2024, when his disapproval was 57%, and all the Democrats who were pro-Biden were like, no, we don't need a primary. You can't primary a sitting president. That's insulting. It's like, bro, when your numbers are this bad, when majority of people disapprove of you, you damn well should get primaried. Frankly, you shouldn't have even run for re-election. So this is not shocking. I think we all saw this, and those of us who supported a primary, and some of you guys are on the, what was it called? The Dean team? We tried, right? All right. Dean Phillips, if you're out there, we want you back on the Nerd Show. Would love to kind of talk about what you think, where the party can go. I do wonder if there's room for a center-left Democratic Party, or if that needs to be a third party entirely. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. I mean, if the Democrats kind of went back to Obama, Clinton, Bill Clinton, went kind of center-left, and we were running against like J.D. Vance and Kash Patel, like, come on, man. I think that wouldn't be a problem at all. Or Vivek Ramaswamy, like these really, really dyed in the wool orange folk. All right, let's look at this one, which is voters were telling us what they cared about. They cared about the cost of living more than every other issue. Cost of living versus student debt. Which is more important to you? Cost of living. 94-6. Cost of living versus LGBTQ issues. 94% cost of living. Cost of living versus race relations. 87% cost of living. Note that 87% means lots of people of color were more concerned about cost of living than race relations. Cost of living versus income inequality. Cost of living. Cost of living versus voting rights. Cost of living. Cost of living versus climate change. Cost of living. Cost of living versus abortion. Cost of living. Cost of living versus border security. Cost of living. That wasn't the campaign that Harris ran. You know, this is the answers to the tests were available. I'm pretty sure this research, wasn't really done. Was maybe not this exact question, but research like this was probably available to the campaigns. And they, as far as I could tell, didn't really take it too seriously. Okay, where do voters trust Republicans and Democrats? So importance is all the way to the right, and trust margin between Democrats and Republicans is on the vertical axis. So if it's very important and they trust Democrats, it'll be right around here, which is empty. So you get a little bit for healthcare, a little bit for mental health, a little bit for Medicare, which is kind of like healthcare, ever so slightly for housing. But if you look where this bottom right quadrant, where it's really important and they trust Republicans, cost of living, economy, and inflation. So when you compare those two charts, as a reminder, it is cost of living stupid, right? That's clear. We all know that now. And then you go look at this chart. Who the hell is more trusted for cost of living? The Republicans. The Democrats win for mental health, basically mental health. And that's not nearly as important to voters as cost of living. God, this Democratic Party needs a massive reinvention. This is not like, oh, let's make some tweaks, poke around the corners. This is damning data about the state of the Democratic Party. Good news is we've got 2 years to be in the wilderness before we kind of get back onto the playing field. Okay. Throughout the cycle, voters were more concerned with economic issues, looking for a shock to the system, not the preservation of institutions. Which is more important right now? Preserving institutions, delivering change that improves Americans' lives. 78% change that improves lives. We don't care about the institutions, or only 18% care. Which of the following do you agree with most? Things in America are going poorly, and what is needed is a major change and a shock to the system from whoever becomes president. Versus things could be going better, and what is needed is a return to basic stability from whoever becomes president. That sounds pretty good to me, but that only got 37%. 53% wanted basically the wrecking ball. I'm not saying like I agree with what folks were saying. I'm just saying that's what the voters wanted. And you know, you gotta pay attention to the data. And this was conducted in October, before the election. So did you hear anything from Harris and Walz about how bad everything is and why major change and a shock to the system is required? And then this goes to like, well, then why would you nominate the sitting vice president if the people want a shock to the system? Well, the reason is because the sitting president wasn't willing to step down and suspend his reelection campaign until 3 months before election day and like 1 month before the freaking convention. So thanks a lot, Joe Biden. You could have gone down in history as the guy that beat Trump and was transitional. And now you're going to go down in history as the guy that gave us Trump. And screwed Harris, frankly, and screwed the Democratic Party. Voters saw Harris as more ideologically extreme than Trump. More extreme than Trump. That's saying a lot, especially knowing what we know now. I'm pretty sure most people would not list the things that Trump has done as moderate. Relative to yourself, where would you place Harris? More liberal than me, 49%. Close to my views, 27%. More conservative than me, 7%. Whereas Trump, more conservative than me, 39%. Close to my views, 33%. So basically, most people thought that Trump was pretty much conservative and close to their views, whereas most people felt Harris was more liberal than them. Maybe that's the big comparison. 49% said Harris is more liberal than me, but only 39% felt that Trump was more conservative than me, meaning 60%, yeah. Relative to yourself, where would you place Trump? More conservative than me is 39%. So 33% felt that he was just right on the money, and 7% felt that he was actually more liberal. So 40% felt that he was kind of like close or more liberal to me, whereas most people felt that Harris was more liberal. Now, the difference in the columns is that you see a vote swing of 55%. So look at this. 75% of people who voted for Trump felt that Harris was more liberal. 64% of people who voted for Trump felt that Trump was close to their views. What about the people that voted for Harris? 53 felt that she was close to their views, but 24% of people who voted for her still felt that she was more liberal. Yeah. I don't know if this one's that shocking. I mean, I think the Republicans did a pretty good job painting her as a liberal, and I don't think she did a great job of staking out any moderate or conservative positions. There probably was some gender and race bias in assuming that she's a liberal person, but I mean, Jesus, she was like, in California, she's considered quite moderate, and many liberals found her to be very hard on poor people and criminals. I mean, she was the attorney general, right? Okay, she locked up a lot of people. I don't know why everybody thought she was like this raging liberal, but okay. Hey, can you guys still hear me? I just got an error message saying that there might be issues with my audio, but I'm just going to keep going because we got more data to go through. Oh, Jeremy saying the white women answer the call Zoom meeting. I don't remember that one, but I do remember all of these weird Zoom meetings happening. I have to say, I'm still shocked that she lost because I thought that supporting an insurrection and refusing to accept the outcome of last election would have been kind of disqualifying. But oh, thanks for confirming on the sound. Appreciate it, Jeremy. All right, let's move on. There's been wide adoption of platforms like TikTok, not mediated by traditional media. And voters on these platforms, often less engaged in politics, swung more towards Trump. Do you use blank to get your news? If you get your news from broadcast TV, 58% went for Harris. If you said local TV, 52%. But Facebook, only 45%. Twitter, 45%. And TikTok, which you would think is younger people, but only 51% went with Harris. So you see here where Biden was doing much better than Harris in pretty much all of these categories. And among TikTok users, how important is politics to your identity? If you said, well, it's really not that important, 56% would have gone for Biden in 2020. Only 48% went for Harris. So you see the swing, basically a compression of Democratic support among all categories, but most pronounced among TikTok users and people who don't really care about politics much. So now if you're a Biden supporter, you could argue like, oh, look, we should not have gotten rid of him. But I don't know. I mean, I think we all saw that first debate. Like, it doesn't matter what any of these numbers say. Dude was like totally incoherent. You might be wondering, why is it taking him so long to drink? Because this is not just water. This is fiber, and it is thick stuff. It's like a milkshake. All right. Probably more. It's like solid. Okay, let's go to the next one. Many, but not all of Trump policies have been popular. Least popular policies are those that end benefits, cancel federal spending, and impose tariffs. So where is the opposition to a Trump policy? Tax cut extensions for the rich, cutting Social Security and Medicare, and repealing Obamacare. People do not want that. They also do not want cutting Medicaid, pausing federal funding, or introducing tariffs. But now you would say, like, oh my God, like so many people don't want this stuff. The problem is that he's kind of flooded the zone with all this other stuff, including stuff that people do like. They do like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, border, voter ID, cartel terrorist designation. They like that. So he's giving people things that are 70% support so that he can sneak in stuff that only has 40% support. This is the, it's like, you know, you want crab cake and there's a little bit of crab, but then there's a lot of like flour. And that's what Trump does. And you got to give him credit, man. He just puts so much flotsam in the water. You know, it's hard to get people to focus on what the guy's doing. And they basically said that was their strat. All right. We have been seeing in our data that messages about cost-cutting benefits at the expense of the working class have been driving the most movement against Trump and the GOP. So this is interesting research for the Democratic Party going forward. If you say, hey, you know, Trump's talking about making cuts to Medicare and Social Security, earned benefits and seniors, that's benefits that seniors are paid into their whole lives, but Trump calls these entitlements and has expressed openness to cutting them in order to finance his huge new tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans that they don't need. You find that it does increase his disapproval, you know, by 2.5%. Another one is Trump is letting Elon Musk slash federal budgets with no oversight, checks, or balances. Musk gave $250 million to Trump's campaign, and now Trump is letting Musk reshape government in ways that advance Musk's interests, even if they are hurting working Americans by cutting the basics like Medicaid and public schools. So this notion of cutting Medicare, letting Elon run wild, letting Elon have access to private personal data, killing Obamacare, giving tax breaks to the ultra rich. These are all things that the Democratic Party could make an argument about to increase disapproval of Trump. What I would say is, like, I think the Democratic Party also needs to be for something. Like, if I think in the long run, we're going to find that Bernie was right about a lot of stuff. So, like, there probably should be Medicare option for everybody. We probably do need to rein in the cost of higher education. And we probably should raise the minimum wage. Those are the kinds of things that I think the Democrats could be for. But so far, it's not been clear who's really in charge. And that's still shaking out. Okay. I have one last chart for you before I wrap up. And again, if you're enjoying this stream, do me a solid, like, share, subscribe if you're new to here, but most of you are not new here. But subscribe if you're not subscribed. And then comment if you're watching this on replay in the future. Let me know which of the charts was most interesting to you. And put it in the live chat now. Which of the charts was most surprising? For me, I think it's the losing the Hispanic and Asian moderates, and then also starting to lose young people. But we'll end on this note, which is that most Americans do not approve of Donald Trump. Majority of Americans do not approve of him. So even though the MAGA folks think like, well, he won in this massive landslide, which he did not, he won by like 1.5% of the popular vote, but he did win all the swing states. But, you know, that's like being undefeated, but winning every game by like a field goal. Like, it's still a win, but it's not like you are crushing the other side left and right. I mean, you lost a seat in the House, right? I think the MAGA folks did. So, at any rate, there's hope if you are a Democrat, because most people do not approve of Trump. Now, what I will tell you is this: it's a double-edged sword, because if most people don't approve of Trump, and yet the Democratic Party is still in disarray, that means the Democratic Party really needs to reinvent itself. And, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we see a pragmatic, well, maybe we call it the pragmatic progressives. Let's go for Medicare option for all. Let's go for higher minimum wage. Let's go for reforming higher ed. Let's go for reforming immigration. And you can do this, and you can be a nation of immigrants, but you can also be a nation of laws. That shouldn't be some exclusive position of the Republican Party. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I can tell you this: if the party, lurches more to the left on the social stuff, we're not going to win more elections. I think the voters have been very clear about that. So the one thing that I will say is it does bug me a little bit that the biggest way to hurt Trump is to accuse him of trying to reform Social Security and Medicare, because those two programs are not on a path for financial sustainability. We spend more on those programs than we take in. And that is a function of demographics. There are just more and more older people, and there are less and less younger people. People are having fewer kids, and those kids are paying less in taxes. And older folks are living much longer than was planned when Social Security was invented. And then you have people who are very wealthy and retired that are collecting Social Security. Now, they would argue, well, I put money in. It's like, well, you put money in to have like a 5-10 year retirement, not a 30-40 year retirement. And if you're already a millionaire, like, do you really need that Social Security? Or would you like to keep this program kind of solvent? So, at any rate, I don't think anybody's going to get elected by trying to say we should revisit, what was it, Simpson Bowles, like the kind of long-term sustainability of the country committee. Most voters don't seem to care about that. They're more interested in talking about, transgender stuff or other topics that are important. But in my opinion, if we keep spending more than we take in as a country, how does that work in the long run? Let me know in the comments if you think I'm being too fiscally kind of freaked out, but I don't like the trends for Social Security or Medicare or healthcare overall. Like, how is it that we spend so much and we have such unhealthy people? We need to kind of figure this out. All right, nerds, I will see you later. Oh, I forgot to put my going away music. Damn it, I always forget that. Three takeaways for you. Number one, the Democratic Party is slowly becoming a second-tier party. It is losing moderates, it is losing on immigrants, and it's losing young people versus where it was, 4 years ago. The second thing is that Trump himself is not very popular. Most people disapprove of him. Most people disapprove of most of his policies. And yet somehow the Democrats are not offering anything that is energizing voters. I know, dude. I know. And then I have to make up these summaries, but hopefully the summary is helpful. So number one, Democratic Party at risk of being a second-tier party. Number two, Trump is not that popular. He just looks popular because there's like no alternative out there. Number three is I believe there is a path for a center-left Midwest governor to lead us out of the wilderness and basically make the case to the American people that the Democratic Party stands with you. It stands with you on a healthy, sustainable, stable economy, on lifting wages for working folks, on bringing down the cost of healthcare, bringing down the cost of higher ed, protecting Social Security for future generations. Like, we can do this. There's a sensible way to do it. Let's have the conversation and talk about alternatives to chaos. I'm Tom Leung, and I am not running for president. All right. See you guys later.